That's how your kind always ends up on the floor. The sentence cut across the ballroom like a blade. Maya Williams, 29, lay on her knees, her breath knocked out of her. A sterling silver tray rolled away, clattering against a pillar. Bits of caviar, lobster medallions, and champagne drops glittered on the hem of a tuxedoed man now staring at her with venom. It hadn't even been her fault. As she passed between tables, a guest's knee accidentally jutted into her path. She stumbled, the tray tilted, and the contents spilled not across the linen tablecloths but directly down the front of Richard Whitman's tailored Armani tuxedo. Gasps rippled across the room. Phones rose like periscopes. Someone hissed, "Oh my God!" Richard's hand shot out before Maya could even form words. He seized her by the arm, yanking her upright. Champagne dripped from his jacket like sweat. His face, usually the mask of America's most polished billionaire, was crimson now. "You stupid girl." His voice boomed against the marble walls. "Do you know how much this costs? Do you know who I am?" I'm sorry, sir," Maya stammered. Her eyes wide, throat tight. "It wasn't someone tripped me. Don't you dare lie to me." His grip tightened, and then his hand tangled in her hair, twisting cruelly at the roots. "You clumsy little nothing. Made for nothing. Trying to humiliate me in front of my guests?" Maya winced, pain searing through her scalp as he yanked her off her feet. She clawed at his wrist. "Please, Mr. Whitman, please don't," her voice broke. At the edge of the dance floor, Victoria Whitman, 41, stunning in her sapphire gown, watched with an expression hovering between disdain and delight. She raised her champagne flute, her eyes glittering. "She's been trouble from day one, Richard," Victoria said, her voice carrying across the silent guests. "Always slow, always careless. She deserves what she gets." The words landed on Maya like stones. She reached for the floor, trying to ease the pressure on her hair, but Richard only dragged her farther, her shoes squealing against the marble. Her knees burned as she stumbled to keep up. "Please," she cried again, voice rising with panic. "Please, I'll pay for the jacket, I'll work extra shifts, just don't hurt me." Phones captured everything. A senator's wife clutched her pearls. A waiter froze mid-step. The golden image of Richard Whitman, the philanthropist, the builder of communities, was cracking in real time. "Look at her," Richard snarled to the crowd, hauling Maya into the center of the ballroom like a prize to be punished. "This is what happens when servants forget their place." No, 3 years she'd worked in this house, scrubbing the polished floors he walked over like a king. 3 years of cold glances, whispered insults, forgotten birthdays, and invisible bruises. She had endured it all for her younger sister's college tuition, for her mother's medical bills, for survival. Maya's scalp screamed. Her vision blurred. In the blur of faces, judges, anchors, CEOs, she saw her father's eyes. The photo from the clipping in Richard's study flashed through her mind. Marcus Williams, killed, paid off, buried. It was about Marcus Williams. Her father, dead 17 years. A construction accident, they had said. A hit and run. Case closed, buried, forgotten. Until 2 weeks ago, when she found the manila folder hidden behind old tax files in Richard Whitman's study. A folder that contained an obituary, a grainy traffic photo, and a note, handled, paid, next to her father's name. She hadn't cried when she read it. She had only stared, then copied every single page, saved it on a flash drive, locked it in her sock drawer. She had planned to wait, build more proof, talk to the right people, choose the right time, but there he was, dragging her across the ballroom like a rag doll, in front of hundreds, smirking as though she were less than human. That was the spark, and something inside her, something she had held down for 17 years, snapped. She stopped struggling, straightened as best she could under his grip. Her chest heaved once, twice. Her eyes, dark and defiant, locked on his. "Murder," she shouted. The word ricocheted off the marble walls like a gunshot. The quartet dropped their bows. A tray crashed somewhere in the corner as a waiter flinched. Richard's grip faltered as though her hair had turned to flame. His hand slipped away. Color drained from his face. Maya stood trembling, her uniform disheveled, her scalp burning. Tears clung to her lashes but didn't fall. Her voice rose again, louder this time, steady and clear. Murder. You killed him. You killed my father. The crowd erupted in whispers, sharp and venomous. Victoria's smile cracked. Richard? She whispered, stepping back. Richard opened his mouth, but no words came. For the first time all night, the titan of industry looked small. Maya, though shaking, stood upright, her chest heaving, the single word still hanging in the air like smoke after an explosion. The crowd didn't move. For a full 30 seconds, the grand ballroom of the Whitman estate was suspended in a silence so thick it seemed to dull the chandeliers. Maya stood still, her breath shallow, heart pounding against her ribs. The echoes of her voice, murder, you killed him, you killed my father, still danced on the marble floors like invisible witnesses. Richard stared at her, pale as the marble columns behind him. His lips parted but nothing emerged. His eyes darted to the crowd, scanning their reactions. Shock, disbelief, horror. A few were recording, others whispering with their hands to their mouths. He looked like a man trying to catch a train that had already left the station, bewildered and suddenly alone. Victoria stepped forward, her heels clicking like gunshots. She's insane, she said coldly. She's obviously had a breakdown. Look at her, she spilled wine on him, and now she's making up some sob story for sympathy. Richard, say something. But he didn't. Maya stood straighter. Her voice came again, quieter, deeper this time, not for the crowd, but for him. You thought no one would ever find out. You thought if you threw enough money at it, buried it deep enough, it would stay dead. But I remember, Richard. I remember the night they told my mother he died in a construction accident. I was 12. There was a rustle from the back. One of the older guests, a retired judge, perhaps stepped closer, brows drawn. What is she talking about, Richard? Is this true? Maya took a step forward. My father was Marcus Williams. He worked for one of Whitman Development's early sites in the Bronx. I've seen the payout. I've read the police file. I've read your signature. Richard blinked. You don't know what you're talking about, he mumbled, voice hoarse. Then say it, Maya replied. Say his name. Say you didn't kill Marcus Williams. Victoria turned sharply. Richard, don't say a word. We'll deal with this legally. This girl, this woman, she's trying to extort us. A murmur swept through the crowd. The illusion was unraveling. A few guests had already stepped away. Others whispered into phones. Someone from the press, disguised as a donor, edged closer. Maya didn't wait for more chaos. She turned, her back straight, hair still disheveled, but her walk firm. As she reached the side doors leading to the staff hallway, Helen was there, already holding a towel and a glass of water. My God, Helen whispered, eyes wet. You did it. Not yet, Maya murmured. But it started. Helen helped her down the hall and into the small break room behind the kitchen. The door closed. The muffled roar of confusion continued behind them. Maya sank into the old wooden chair in the corner. Her hands trembled now that she was out of view. The adrenaline was fading, replaced by something colder fear. I shouldn't have said it like that, she whispered. I wasn't ready. I don't have enough. You had the truth, Helen said firmly. And sometimes, baby, the truth is enough to crack a man like that. Maya stared down at her lap. What if he comes for me now? What if he buries me the same way he buried my father? Helen didn't answer right away. She sat across from Maya, her old hands folded neatly on the table. Then we make sure you're not alone. Maya looked up. There's more, Helen. There's a folder in his office documents. Old police reports. Hush money payouts. I made copies. They're on a USB. I've been building a case. Slowly. I was going to release it through a journalist. I was just waiting for the right moment. Helen reached out and gently touched her arm. And what made tonight the moment? Maya smiled, bitter. He grabbed me, in front of them all, like I was disposable, like I was nothing. It reminded me of the night my mother came home after talking to his lawyer. Her face empty, like something had been stolen. He stole her hope. Helen nodded slowly. Then maybe tonight, you stole something back. Maya leaned back in the chair and exhaled deeply. It's not just about me. It's not even just about my father anymore. It's about how many other names are buried under those buildings he brags about. How many poor men of color were thrown aside, paid off, silenced. He didn't just kill my father, he erased him. Helen's face hardened. Then we unerase him. Maya stood. Her legs were steadier now. She wiped her eyes and turned to the mirror on the wall. Her reflection stared back. Not the maid they saw, but a daughter carrying a truth bigger than her fears. I need to send the files tonight, she said, to the journalist. If he shuts me down, she can't be shut down too. No. Helen reached into her apron pocket and pulled out the spare key Maya had given her. It's in the flour tin, behind the rice sacks. I've kept it safe. Maya took the key with a nod. Thank you. You've always treated me like I mattered. Helen squeezed her hand. You do. And your father did too. Maya left the break room and went down the service corridor, passing the wine cellar, the laundry, and into the tiny storeroom where staff sometimes took naps on 30-minute breaks. Behind the bulk rice bags, inside a metal tin labeled cake flour, do not touch, she found the flash drive. She held it in her hand for a long moment. It felt heavier than before. Outside, the night pressed in on the estate. The gala was still unraveling. But Maya knew this wasn't over. She would not sleep tonight. Nor tomorrow. This was just the beginning. The ghosts were awake now. If this story moved you, hit the like button and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. You might just find someone nearby feeling the same. The house was quieter than it had ever been. Not silent, never silent, but quieter. The chandeliers no longer glistened with celebration. The string quartet had packed up. The last of the guests had left in confusion, their chauffeurs ferrying them down the long Whitman driveway, headlights fading into the dark like vanishing memories. But Maya's heart still pounded like a drum, every beat counting down to something bigger, something irreversible. It was nearly midnight when she made her way upstairs. The hallways on the second floor of the Whitman estate had always reminded her of a museum-polished oak floors, velvet wallpaper, portraits of ancestors who had never known poverty, never cleaned someone else's silver. This was a world built on control, order, and silence. But tonight, the silence was different. It was nervous. She paused outside the double doors of Richard Whitman's study. Locked. Of course. It always was. Except Maya knew better. Months ago, during her regular dusting routines, she had discovered that the study's antique brass lock was faulty, a tiny misalignment in the top hinge. If you turned the knob slightly to the left, pressed inward just above the frame, and applied gentle pressure, it would click open. Richard never noticed. Men like him rarely noticed what the help noticed. She hesitated only a second, then pressed, turned, and felt the soft give. Click. The door opened. She stepped inside. The air smelled of cigars and expensive paper. Floor-to-ceiling shelves held books no one read and awards no one questioned. A wall-sized oil painting of Richard posing at a construction site loomed over the room, like a self-made deity watching his domain. The folder had been in the bottom drawer of the mahogany desk, wedged between tax returns and land use maps. She had found it 2 weeks ago while cleaning. It was labeled BX, Site 2008. She remembered staring at it, the letters meaning nothing at first, then recognition bloomed. Bronx Site, 2008, her father's site, the year he died. Maya knelt by the drawer and reached in again, slowly this time, as if the wood might scream. It was still there, now joined by a few more folders dated, marked, hidden in plain sight. She pulled them all out and spread them on the desk. Photos, names, receipts. Marcus Williams wasn't the only one. There were at least 4 other cases, 4 other accidents. A worker who fell from scaffolding, no autopsy requested. A plumber electrocuted death marked as negligence. A man struck by falling beams, family paid an anonymous settlement. It was a pattern. A system. She flipped the final page of one folder and froze. A typed memo. Insure payment is made through Packshell. No connection to RW Holdings. Initialed RW. She reached for her phone and took photos of every page. The truth had weight now. It wasn't just suspicion, it was history. Documented, hidden, deliberate. Suddenly, the doorknob rattled behind her. Maya's heart leapt into her throat. Footsteps, heavy, slow. She shoved the folders back into place, stuffed the flash drive in her pocket, and slid into the shadows near the tall curtains. The door creaked open. Richard entered, not in a tuxedo now. Just a crisp white shirt. Sleeves rolled, top button undone, but his posture still rigid. A man barely holding the seams of his empire together. He didn't turn on the light. He moved straight to the desk, opened the drawer, paused, then cursed under his breath. "I know you took it," he muttered to no one. "You little snake." Maya held her breath. Her back pressed to the cold wall, inches from him. Her scalp still ached from where he'd grabbed her hours ago. Richard sank into the leather chair, rubbed his face with both hands. Then he reached for the decanter and poured himself a drink, neat, fast, desperate. "I made you," he hissed, as if to an unseen ghost. "I gave you work, shelter, a goddamn roof." He drank. "You think you can destroy me over something that happened decades ago?" He drank again. Then his voice softened dangerously. "I will ruin you, Maya." She closed her eyes. When his phone rang, the screen lit up his face. Hollow, wrinkled, crumbling. He answered, "Yeah, I saw the feed. Damage control's underway. Don't worry, I'll handle it. No one believes the help. Never have, never will." He ended the call and sat in silence. After a long moment, he stood and left. Maya waited. 10 minutes, then 20. Only then did she slip out of the curtain, her legs trembling. She had heard enough. And she knew deep in her gut. This wasn't just about justice anymore. This was war, and the first bullet had already been fired. The kitchen at the Whitman estate had always been the staff's refuge. It was where the noise of crystal glasses and piano chords faded into the clatter of pots and the hiss of steam. Tonight, even the kitchen seemed to hold its breath. The smell of rosemary and butter had gone cold. The overhead lights hummed faintly like nervous insects. Maya slipped through the back hallway and entered quietly, pressing the door closed behind her. Helen was at the counter, her hands wrapped around a chipped mug of coffee. She didn't look up right away. Her shoulders were stiff, her gray hair pulled back into its usual bun, though a few strands had escaped, framing her face with worry. "You were in his study," Helen said finally, her voice low but steady. Not a question, a statement. Maya leaned against the doorframe, the flash drive clutched tightly in her hand. "I had to see it again. I had to know if it was still there." Helen turned, her eyes searching Maya's. "And?" Maya crossed the room and set the flash drive on the counter. Her fingers left small, damp marks on the stainless steel. "It's worse than I thought. My father wasn't the only one. There were others men who worked on his sites, paid off, buried, the same initials on every memo, RW. Helen's mouth tightened. She picked up the flash drive as though it were a live coal. "You need to leave, child. Tonight. Take your sister. Take your things. Get out of this house before—" "No." Maya cut her off, her voice sharper than she meant. She lowered it again. "No, I'm not running. Not again. My mother ran for 17 years. She worked 2 jobs, kept her head down, told me to forget, and look where it got her dying before she could see justice. I won't do it." Helen's eyes softened, but her voice stayed firm. "Justice is a slow horse, Maya. It doesn't always arrive in time." Maya's hands trembled as she reached for a chair and sat down across from the older woman. "I can't unsee his face tonight. The way he grabbed me, the way she—" She stopped, swallowing hard. Victoria was smiling while he did it. "Mo." Helen looked down into her coffee. "She's been smiling through his sins for years." Some people choose comfort over conscience. Maya stared at the tile floor, her mind flashing back to the ballroom. The phones held up like witnesses. The guests' eyes wide. The word murder still echoing off the walls. She whispered, "Maybe tonight. People will finally believe." "Maybe," Helen said quietly. She reached across the table and laid her wrinkled hand over Maya's. "But you're still in his house. That man isn't done with you. He's too proud, too scared. You struck a nerve." Maya lifted her head. "Then I strike again. But this time, not just with a word." Helen tilted her head, studying her. "You've got a plan?" "Not yet, but I've got evidence. And a journalist waiting. Angela Brooks. She's been digging into Whitman Enterprises for years but could never break it open. Now she has my father's case. The others, the payouts. She's ready. And then what's stopping you? Maya exhaled, her shoulders sagging. I thought I could control the timing. But now he knows. He'll move fast. Destroy whatever's left. Maybe even come after me. Helen pushed back her chair and stood, her joints cracking. She went to the pantry and rummaged behind the flour bins, retrieving an old tin marked brown sugar. She set it on the counter and opened it, revealing a prepaid flip phone and a slip of paper with a number scrawled on it. Call her from this, Helen said. Not your phone. Tell her to send copies of everything to 3 different places, and tell her to have the police ready next time. Maya blinked at the older woman. Helen, why are you helping me? The old cook gave a short, bitter laugh. I started here 30 years ago. I've seen men like him build their fortunes on other people's bones. Your father wasn't the first good man to die for his projects. But you might be the first daughter to fight back. Maya swallowed hard, nodding. Then I'll fight back. She took the phone and dialed the number. Angela answered on the second ring, her voice sharp and awake despite the late hour. Maya? It's me, Maya said softly, glancing at the kitchen door as if it might sprout ears. I've got everything. It's worse than we thought. He's done it before. Several times. Angela's voice steadied. Send me what you have now, tonight. I'll make sure it's copied to the DA's office, the state investigators, and the press. You're not alone anymore. Maya hesitated, then said, I think he suspects me. He was in the study tonight after everyone left, talking on the phone. He said he'd ruin me. A pause on the other end. He won't, Angela said. Not if we move first. Send the files and stay where people can see you until morning. Do you understand? Yes, Maya whispered. When she hung up, Helen squeezed her shoulder. Good girl. Maya stared at the phone in her hand. Tomorrow, everything changes. Helen gave a small, sad smile. Tomorrow, everything starts. They sat together for a long moment. The kitchen clock ticking like a metronome for destiny. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the windows. Somewhere upstairs, a door slammed. Maya slipped the flash drive into an envelope and sealed it with trembling hands. If something happens to me, Helen cut her off. Nothing's going to happen. Not while I'm here. Maya looked into her eyes. He killed my father to cover his tracks. You think he wouldn't? Stop, Helen said softly. Eat something. She pushed a plate toward her cold cornbread. A little butter. Your hands are shaking. You need strength. Maya forced herself to take a bite. The simple food grounded her. She thought of her father's laugh, his rough hands holding her small ones while they built birdhouses on their porch. He used to say, she murmured, truth doesn't die, it just waits. Helen's eyes glistened. Then make it wait no more. Footsteps echoed in the hallway. Heavy, purposeful. Both women froze. Maya's heart lurched. She slid the envelope under the cutting board. The kitchen door opened. Richard Whitman stood there, his white shirt sleeves rolled up, his eyes 2 chips of ice. He didn't speak. He just looked at Maya long and hard as though memorizing her. Then, slowly, he smiled. Late night snack? He asked. His voice was soft, but the softness was worse than shouting. Be sure to clean up when you're done. He closed the door without waiting for an answer. Maya sat rigid until the sound of his footsteps faded. Helen whispered, It's begun. Maya nodded once. Yes, she said. It has. By dawn, the Whitman estate looked exactly as it had the day before. Immaculate gardens, glistening windows, the early hum of the staff preparing breakfast. But behind the walls, the air was different. Heavy, charged. Maya stood in the hallway outside her small bedroom, fully dressed in her staff uniform, though she had no intention of serving coffee this morning. Her eyes were dry, her hair pinned neatly, her hands tucked into the pockets of her apron to hide their trembling. The envelope with the flash drive was no longer hidden beneath the cutting board. It was already on its way. She'd handed it off to Mateo, the morning delivery boy, with strict instructions and a tip big enough to buy silence. Deliver it to Angela Brooks. Tell her Maya said it's everything. Mateo didn't ask questions. He nodded, stuffed it into his canvas bag between boxes of eggs and newspaper bundles, and pedaled off into the sunrise. Now, Maya moved carefully through the halls, each step deliberate. She felt watched, not just by cameras, though she knew there were more than a dozen throughout the house, but by eyes. Suspicious ones, paranoid ones. At the far end of the hall, near the stairs that led to the master suite, Richard's security chief, Owen Clay, leaned casually against the wall, pretending to check his phone. But Maya could feel the weight of his gaze. He'd been stationed there more often since the gala, with his earpiece always in, always listening. Maya kept her head low and walked past him with a slight nod. He didn't return it. Downstairs, the breakfast service was already underway. The dining room glittered in morning light. Victoria Whitman sat at the head of the long table, her blonde hair curled and flawless, sipping grapefruit juice with one hand, scrolling her phone with the other. Maya approached slowly, setting a plate of eggs Benedict beside her. Victoria didn't look up. "You're still here?" "Yes, ma'am," Maya said softly. Victoria's hand froze mid-scroll. She looked up, her eyes sharp. "You should have packed your things last night. Richard may have acted emotionally, but I won't allow this house to become a stage for your little outbursts." Maya said nothing. "I've spoken with HR," Victoria continued. "You'll be formally released from employment by Friday. You'll be compensated for this week. I trust that will be sufficient." Maya met her gaze, voice even. "I'm not going anywhere. Though." Victoria's smile was razor thin. "Oh, but you are. Whether you walk out or are escorted out, make no mistake. The end is the same." Maya bowed slightly. "I'll clean the patio after breakfast." Victoria scoffed and returned to her phone. "Do." Maya turned and left. Behind her, she could feel Victoria watching not with fear, but with disgust. In the staff quarters, Maya found Helen polishing the brass light switches with her usual quiet rhythm. "You gave it to the boy?" Helen asked. Maya nodded. "He's fast. Angela will have it by 9. Helen set down the cloth. "Good. You need to lay low now. Let the story work." But Maya shook her head. "He's not going to wait. I saw Owen near my door this morning. They're watching me. I don't know if it's to scare me or to trap me." Helen's jaw tightened. "Men like him don't like loose threads. You've become a threat, Maya." Maya's eyes scanned the corridor. "What if he already suspects the files are gone? Then he'll come for the originals," Helen said. "Or you." Before Maya could respond, a loud knock echoed from the front entrance. Maya stiffened. Helen peered out the small side window. A black SUV had pulled up in front of the house. Out stepped a woman in a beige trench coat with short natural curls and a leather briefcase. Maya's heart skipped. "Angela." Helen's brows rose. "She came in person? I didn't expect that." Maya rushed to the front just as the butler opened the door. "May I help you, ma'am?" he asked politely. Angela's voice was calm but firm. "Angela Brooks. I'm here to speak with Richard Whitman. This is in regard to the incident at last night's gala." Victoria's heels clicked across the tile. "Journalists don't make appointments here. Kindly leave." Angela didn't flinch. "I have a few questions. This involves more than spilled champagne and bruised egos." Victoria's tone darkened. "You have 5 seconds to walk away before I have you removed." Angela opened her briefcase slowly. From it, she removed a single photograph. She held it up. It was Marcus Williams, standing in front of the Bronx construction site, smiling. Victoria blinked. Her lips parted. Angela said softly, "This man died under questionable circumstances." Richard signed the check that silenced the case. Victoria's composure cracked just slightly. "I don't know what you're insinuating, but this is not the place." Angela turned, eyes locking with Maya's. "Maya, are you ready to speak on the record?" The air shifted. Even the butler took a step back. Maya straightened. "Yes, I am." Victoria's voice rose. "This is private property." Maya spoke over her, not loud, but firm. "The truth doesn't respect property lines." Owen appeared from the hallway, his face like stone. "Mr. Whitman would like to speak with Miss Williams. Alone." "That..." Angela took a step forward. "That won't happen without counsel present." Maya looked at Owen. Tell him I'll speak to him, but not in a room without windows, and not without her." She pointed to Angela. Owen's brow twitched. Then he nodded once and turned. As he walked away, Helen whispered into Maya's ear, "Careful, you just became the storm he can't control." Maya swallowed, nodded once, and followed. This wasn't survival anymore. It was confrontation. Richard's private meeting room was located in the east wing of the estate, far from the grand halls, from the watchful eyes of the guests, and deeper than Maya had ever gone as a housemaid. Owen led them there without a word, his frame blocking half the hallway with each step. Maya followed with Angela just behind, her heels sharp against the Italian tile. Every footfall felt like a countdown. The room was lined with walnut paneling, bare walls, and no visible cameras, just two high, narrow windows that let in pale shafts of morning light. A glass table gleamed at the center, surrounded by 6 black leather chairs. No artwork, no warmth, a room designed for control. Richard stood by the window when they entered, back turned, sleeves rolled to the elbows, shirt collar open. He didn't greet them. "Sit," he said finally, voice cool and clipped. Maya sat across from him. Angela remained standing. Richard turned slowly. His face showed the wear of a man who hadn't slept. His jaw was unshaven, his eyes bloodshot, but there was no apology in them. No fear. Just calculation. "I should fire you on the spot," he said to Maya, "for what you did last night." "You already tried," Maya replied evenly. "But I'm still here, and I'm not afraid of you anymore." Richard's lip curled. "You think what? That you've exposed me? That people care what a maid screams at a party?" Angela stepped forward. "They do when that maid has documents. Photos, internal memos, payroll records, death reports, all connected to your developments." Richard's eyes snapped to her. "You came in person for this?" Angela raised her chin. "I don't run stories on rumor. I run them on record. And Maya is ready to speak on the record. Unless you'd prefer I publish without your side." A flicker of panic crossed his face, but only for a second. Then he smiled, cold. "You don't know what you're getting into," he said. "You think a few photocopies from an office drawer can take down a man like me? Do you have any idea how many politicians owe me favors? How many judges golf with me on Saturdays?" Maya's voice was calm. "Then why haven't you called them yet?" He blinked. "You're stalling," she continued, "because you're not worried about the press. You're worried about what happens after, about who else comes forward when they hear my name, about what other bodies are buried under your buildings." Richard's hand twitched. He stepped forward, placing both palms flat on the glass table. His voice dropped. "You want money? Fine. Tell me the number. I'll write the check." Angela scoffed. "You think this is about money?" But Maya held up a hand, silencing her. She leaned forward, locking eyes with the man who had stolen so much from her life. "I don't want a check, Mr. Whitman. I want my father's name back. I want people to know Marcus Williams was a man, not a line item. I want to watch your empire shake every time someone says the word murder." The word landed like a slap. Richard stood up straight, his face unreadable. "Then you'd better be ready to lose everything," he said, "because I won't go quietly, and I don't lose." Angela reached into her bag and pulled out a white envelope. "Then consider this, the start." She slid it across the table. "Filed this morning with the state attorney's office. Accompanied by an anonymous source. Not you," she added quickly to Maya. "So, you can't be legally silenced. But enough to open a formal inquiry." Richard's smile wavered. Angela leaned closer. "You have 2 options, Mr. Whitman. You come clean, or the walls close in around you. Slowly, loudly, and permanently." Richard stared at the envelope like it was ticking. Silence stretched between them until he finally said, "Get out of my house." Maya rose without flinching. Angela followed. At the door, Maya turned once more. "You killed Marcus Williams, but he left something behind." Richard's jaw clenched. "Me." And with that, she stepped out of the room. Back in the hallway, her breath came fast, but steady. Angela touched her shoulder. "That was brave." Maya shook her head. "That was necessary." They walked together toward the front entrance. Helen stood by the stairs, watching with wet eyes. Maya gave her a small nod. Outside, the sun had risen fully. Light spilled across the stone path like a blessing. Maya looked back once. The house stood unchanged, cold, proud, impenetrable, but something inside had shifted. For the first time in 17 years, Richard Whitman was afraid. The door of the Whitman estate closed behind Maya with a soft, definitive click, a sound that felt heavier than it should have. She paused on the porch steps, the crisp morning breeze catching the hem of her uniform. The estate loomed behind her, a monument of wealth, history, and carefully maintained illusions. But today, that monument had a crack, and she had made it. Angela walked beside her, scanning the long drive toward the gate where her sedan was parked. Her tone was steady, but her fingers fidgeted with her car keys. That was more than brave, she said. It was historic. Maya gave a dry smile. Let's see if it matters by tonight. Angela unlocked the car. I've seen stories die at the printer's edge, but this one has fire. They got in. The leather seats were still warm from the Sunday. As Angela drove, Maya watched the estate grow smaller in the side mirror, like a receding memory. You were right about the pattern, Angela said as she turned onto the main road. Bronx, Brooklyn, Camden, all development zones, all involving minority labor, all with unexplained deaths and sealed settlements. I knew it wasn't just my dad, Maya said, voice soft. You were right to dig, Angela replied, but now you're exposed. We need to move fast. Maya turned toward her. What happens now? Angela's lips tightened. First, I publish a teaser. A headline, enough to draw blood, but not so much that he can block it legally. That buys us time. Maya nodded. And after? Angela hesitated. After, we go federal. Whistleblower protection, possible civil suits. Maybe even criminal charges, if we can prove intent. Maya looked out the window. He signed the payouts himself. Angela's tone darkened. Then we bury him with them. They arrived at Angela's office downtown Modest, tucked above a flower shop, with creaky floors and filing cabinets from the 1982nd. Inside, Maya handed over the remaining documents she had kept hidden in her suitcase at the estate, old memos, worksite logs, and a few internal emails from an anonymous staffer years ago. Angela scanned them quickly, eyes narrowing. This is gold. But Maya's mind wasn't on the files anymore. Angela, she said. I have to go back. Angela looked up sharply. Excuse me? Not to stay. Just for a few hours. There's one more thing. My father's journal. It's not evidence. Not legally. But it's his words. His voice. I need it. And I hid it there. In the vent behind the upstairs linen closet. Angela exhaled slowly. You realize he's watching you now, right? If you go back. I know, Maya cut in, but I won't leave it behind. He took everything else. Not this. Angela considered her, then finally nodded. Then I'm going with you. Maya blinked. You? You're not walking into that house alone again. Not after last night. An hour later, they parked across from the estate. Maya had changed out of her uniform jeans, a hoodie, and sneakers. Angela had pulled her hair into a baseball cap. They looked like two joggers, not two women trying to reclaim truth from a house of lies. They slipped in through the side staff gate. Maya led the way through the garden path she had walked 1,000 times, past the hydrangeas and the stone angel with the broken wing. Every step made her skin prickle. She could feel the eyes of security, if not real, then imagined. Still, they moved quickly, ducking into the back entrance near the laundry. The house was quieter than usual. A few maids worked in the distant kitchen, but no one patrolled the upper floors. Not yet. Maya guided Angela to the second level. They passed the family portraits paintings of Richard with former presidents. Framed magazine covers declaring him America's builder. At the linen closet, Maya knelt and pried off the vent cover behind the shelving. Her fingers reached deep, brushing against fabric, until they found the battered leather journal. She pulled it free, heart pounding. She opened it for a brief moment. Her father's handwriting stared back, slanted, strong. Today I saw something I shouldn't have. Nah. Angela glanced over her shoulder. Let's go. Now. But as they turned, a shadow loomed in the hallway. Owen Clay. Angela tensed. Keep walking, she whispered. Ladies, Owen said, his voice low and flat. Funny place for a jog. Maya held the journal close. We're done here. Are you? He asked, stepping forward. Because Mr. Whitman is very interested in what you're carrying. Angela pulled out her phone. Back away. I'm live streaming this. Any move you make will be seen by thousands. Owen's eyes flicked to the glowing screen. He stopped. Smart, he muttered. But you know this isn't over, right? Angela smiled coldly. That's the point. They passed him without another word, out the side gate, back to the car. When they were finally on the road again, Maya opened the journal. She flipped to the final page. Her father had written one last line, dated a week before his death. If anything happens to me, it wasn't an accident. You know who to look at. Maya closed the book and held it to her chest. She had found his voice again, and this time, the world would hear it. The article dropped at 7:03 a.m. the next day. Angela Brooks had kept her word. A bold headline swept across the front page of her independent news site, shared through every feed, forwarded in chain emails, whispered between office cubicles, and read aloud in diners across the country. From groundbreakers to graveyards, the silent deaths beneath Whitman Enterprises. Subheadline: Whistleblower speaks daughter of deceased worker reveals internal documents tying billionaire Richard Whitman to cover-ups, payouts, and construction fatalities spanning over a decade. The article featured Maya's voice, but not her name, not yet. Angela had made sure of that. Still, Maya knew it wouldn't take long for people to connect the dots. By noon, 3 other outlets had picked it up. By 3 o'clock, a trending hashtag had appeared. #Whitman cover-up. Maya sat on the worn couch in Angela's office, the journal still resting in her lap, half open to the page with her father's final warning. She hadn't said much all day, but her mind was racing. Not with fear, but with focus. She could feel the walls closing in on Richard Whitman, not her walls, but his own. Walls of lies, sealed payoffs, false press releases, and buried truth. They were all beginning to crumble. Angela stepped into the room holding 2 cups of coffee, her brow furrowed. We just got word, she said. The City Council's Ethics Committee is requesting a formal review of every contract Richard's company has with the city. It's starting. Oh, Maya took the coffee, her hand warming around the cup. Do you think he'll fight it publicly? Angela hesitated. He might try. But we've posted the redacted memos. The site logs. The settlement summaries. The tide's turning and fast. He can't plug all the holes now. Maya took a slow sip. Good. But deep inside, she knew it wouldn't be that easy. Men like Richard Whitman didn't go down with dignity. They clawed. They struck. And they destroyed what they could on their way out. Her phone buzzed on the table. A private number. Again. She didn't answer. Angela raised an eyebrow. That the 4th one today? 6th, Maya muttered. Probably his lawyers. Or worse, someone pretending to be. Angela sighed. You don't have to answer. But you should be careful. We'll get you a burner phone tomorrow. For now, don't talk to anyone you don't trust. Maya nodded, then stood and stretched. I need air. I'm going to the park. Angela looked uneasy. You sure that's a good idea? I won't go far. Just down the block. I'll sit where people can see me. I promise. Angela hesitated, then nodded. Take this, she said, handing her a discreet GPS tracker on a keychain. Humor me. Maya pocketed it, gave a small smile, and slipped out the office door into the fading October light. The park was quiet, shaded by sycamores, their leaves already turning gold and amber. She chose a bench facing the playground, surrounded by families and strollers, safe, visible. She pulled the journal from her bag again. There was something she hadn't dared look at before the front flap, where her father had scribbled notes and sketches during his work breaks. There, in rough pencil, was a small map. The Bronx site. He had circled one corner and scrawled, "Support beam never installed." Warned Richard. Ignored. 2 weeks later. Accident. Maya's heart pounded. This was intent. This was more than negligence, it was premeditated. She quickly took a photo and texted it to Angela. A message came back almost immediately. Angela, that's it. That's the nail. Sending this to the legal team now. You okay? Maya typed back. Yeah, just needed to see it with my own eyes. But as she slipped the phone back in her pocket, she caught a movement to her left. A man across the street, tan coat, sunglasses. He wasn't looking at his phone. He was looking at her, not just a glance watching. Maya's breath caught. She stood slowly, slinging the strap of her bag across her chest. She walked casually toward the coffee cart at the corner. Didn't run. Didn't panic. The man didn't follow. He just turned, slowly, and walked the other way. But the warning had been delivered. Back at Angela's office, Maya recounted everything. Angela's jaw tightened. You're being tailed. Probably Whitman's people, or his private security team. We'll move you somewhere safe tonight. I'm not hiding, Maya said. No, you're not. But you're not walking into traffic either. Angela made a few calls. A safe house was arranged, an apartment owned by a retired attorney who had once investigated corporate misconduct cases. Discreet. Off the grid. That night, Maya stood at the window of the safe apartment, watching headlights blur on the freeway. She couldn't sleep. Not yet. Not with the journal still open on the counter. The final page had something else, one more line she hadn't noticed before, scribbled beneath the warning. If you're reading this, M, it means you were brave. Finish what I couldn't. Make them listen. Maya pressed her palm to the page, as if to touch his voice. I will, Daddy, she whispered. I will. Outside, the wind stirred the trees. The night was quiet. But tomorrow? Tomorrow would roar. The next morning didn't come gently. It arrived like a siren. Maya jolted awake to the sound of her burner phone buzzing relentlessly on the kitchen counter of the safe house. Her heart leapt as she reached it. 5 missed calls. 2 voicemails. 1 from Angela. 1 from a blocked number. She listened to Angela's first. Her voice was tight, clipped, urgent. Maya, call me back as soon as you get this. We may have a problem. It looks like someone at the DA's office leaked the files. Richard might already know what's coming. Be careful. I'll update you soon. Maya gripped the edge of the counter, bile rising in her throat. A leak? She played the second voicemail. You should have kept your head down, girl. A man's voice. Calm. Not Richard's, but someone older. Southern accent. Cold. You don't know the kind of people you're stirring up. Last chance to walk away before it's your name in the ground next to your daddy's. Click. Maya didn't breathe for a full 10 seconds. She stood frozen, her eyes fixed on the blinking red light of the voicemail playback. Not just a warning anymore. A threat. She called Angela back immediately. The line picked up on the first ring. Maya? I got both messages, Maya said, her voice low. Someone called me. Angela exhaled sharply. You recognized the voice? No. But it wasn't Richard. It was someone older. Professional. Like a fixer. Angela paused. It's starting. This is how they operate: intimidation first, silence second. The moment they feel the walls closing in, they pull from the shadows. Maya paced the kitchen floor. What do we do? First, we change your location. Tonight, we don't risk them tracing the phone. Second, we strike again. Maya stopped. What do you mean? Angela's tone shifted, cooler now, sharper. We go public. Completely. I want your name in the article. I want your father's name, your voice, your face. We hold a press conference. We take the control out of Richard's hands. If they want to hurt you, they'll have to do it in broad daylight. Maya's stomach twisted. That's not just exposure. That's a target. Yes, Angela said gently. But it's also protection. Because people will see you. And once the public sees a face, a real one, they stop being bystanders. Silence stretched between them. Then Maya said, Okay, let's do it. Angela gave her the details. A public space. A trusted crew. Live-streamed. The safest route into vulnerability was through visibility. That night, Maya was relocated to a hotel room near Central Park, under a pseudonym, with a private entrance and round-the-clock security, donated by a pro bono advocacy group. Still, Every knock at the door made her jump. Every passing voice in the hallway made her hands shake. She pulled the curtains closed and sat on the edge of the bed with her father's journal. The hotel was modern, impersonal, designed to look luxurious but feel temporary. She didn't unpack. Angela arrived just before 10 p.m., laptop and folders in hand. "We've got one shot," she said, opening her device. "Tomorrow morning, we go live. You'll speak for about 5 minutes. We've vetted the questions. The platform's secure. But once it's out there forever." Maya sat across from her. "That's exactly what I want." Angela opened the folder. "These are the documents we'll post after the stream. The complete archive. Memos, death records, settlements, the photograph of your father, and your name attached to every page." Maya skimmed the first few sheets, her throat tightening. She saw the letter her father had written to the Construction Oversight Board just weeks before his death, raising safety concerns, requesting anonymous protection. The letter had been stamped, "Received, no action taken." "I'm going to read this," Maya said. "At the press conference." Angela nodded. "That's your right. But be prepared, Richard will retaliate. Not through lawyers. Through character attacks. False narratives. He'll make you look like a liar, a gold digger, an unstable woman with a vendetta." "I don't care," Maya whispered. "Let him. I'm not here to be believed by him, I'm here to be heard by everyone else." Angela closed the folder. "Then let's rehearse." They practiced for hours. Maya's voice cracked the first few times. She stumbled over her father's name. She cried once, but only once. By midnight, she could read the statement with clarity. Measured, personal, strong. "I am Maya Williams. My father, Marcus, was killed on a job site run by Richard Whitman. He wasn't the first. He won't be the last unless we speak, unless someone stands up." Angela looked at her when it ended. "That right there? That's going to burn through the noise." Maya offered a small smile, exhausted but steady. "Then we let it burn." The next morning, just after sunrise, they entered the press building through the back entrance. A dozen reporters waited inside. The live stream was already counting down. Microphones gleamed on the podium. Maya took her place behind it. She saw the cameras flash. A sea of faces, some skeptical, some concerned, some simply curious. She took a breath, opened her father's journal to the final page, and began to speak. "I am not here today because I want to be. I am here because silence has a cost. And my family already paid it." As her words echoed through the speakers and into homes, phones, and boardrooms across the nation, somewhere across town, in a high-rise office overlooking the city, Richard Whitman stood with his phone in hand, watching the live stream. His jaw tightened. He didn't blink. Behind him, Owen Clay entered quietly and said, "We have a problem." "No," Richard whispered, almost to himself. "No, we have a war." Richard Whitman stood motionless in his corner office, the floor-to-ceiling glass reflecting the blue-gray sky above Manhattan. Below, traffic churned like a restless sea, and yet his world was still eerily still. On the tablet in his hand, Maya's face stared back at him from a paused live stream. She stood at that podium like she belonged there. Steady, controlled. Her father's journal in her hands like a sword. He hadn't expected that. He had underestimated her again. The double doors behind him opened quietly. Owen Clay entered, his expression unreadable. "We've lost containment," he said. Richard didn't look at him. "Define containment." "Media coverage is expanding. The New York Times wants a statement. The Justice for Labor Rights group just issued a petition. And the Department of Labor's director tweeted a quote from Maya's speech an hour ago." Richard finally turned. His face was pale, jaw tight, veins rising under skin stretched too thin. "What's the internal assessment?" 20% drop in pre-market shares." Owen replied. "Board's requesting an emergency session. Legal's recommending a temporary leave of absence, optics only. Nothing permanent." Richard laughed short, bitter. "A leave? They want me to step down for a PR stunt?" Owen said nothing. He knew better than to answer when Richard's voice dropped to that register. "I built this company. I made those cowards rich. And they think I'll roll over because a maid found a dusty box of paperwork and a dead man's diary? Owen finally stepped closer, choosing his words with precision. It's not just the files. It's the story. Her father. Her voice. She's not a headline. She's a symbol now. Richard's eyes darkened. Then symbols need to be destroyed. Owen hesitated. You sure you want to go that route? Richard stepped forward, looming. Do you think I got here by playing nice, Owen? You think I built this empire by backing down from little storms? He slammed his fist on the desk, making the tablet jump. I covered my tracks. Every file that leaked came from her. She broke into my office. That's theft. Trespassing. Libel. Maybe even espionage if we frame it right. Owen remained still. Public sympathy is on her side. If we attack her directly, we risk making her a martyr. Richard's smile was slow, cold. Then we won't attack her directly. We'll destroy her credibility, discredit her father's story, dig into her past, find the cracks. Everyone has them. Owen gave a subtle nod. We've already started the search. Good, Richard said, pacing. And what about the judge? Still in my corner? For now. But if this becomes federal, it won't, Richard snapped. Not if we muddy the waters fast enough. Owen took a breath. Then we go full defense? No, Richard said. We go on offense. Across the city, Maya sat on the edge of a worn couch in the back of a newsroom conference room, still dressed from the press conference, the journal in her lap, untouched coffee growing cold beside her. Angela burst in, her phone in hand. They've responded. Maya looked up. Already? Angela nodded grimly. They're denying everything, claiming the files were altered, that you're an unstable former employee with a personal vendetta. They're circulating anonymous reports from an unnamed staffer who says you were obsessed with Richard and fabricated the story. Maya's breath hitched. Of course they would. They're playing dirty, Maya, and it's just the start. Maya nodded slowly. Let them. We expected this. Angela sat beside her. We did. But we need to strike again, fast. While the momentum's still with us. I have something, Maya said. Angela turned. What? Maya opened the journal again. It's not just what my father wrote. It's what he didn't. She flipped to a page dated 3 days before his death. Half-written sentences. Notes on a conversation. But what stood out was a name. Reynolds. Underlined. Twice. He never mentioned a Reynolds before, Maya said. But he wrote it here, right after describing a meeting at the Bronx site. Said Reynolds promised to escalate the complaint. That means someone else knew. Angela's eyes sharpened. We find Reynolds. We find a witness. No. Exactly. Angela reached for her laptop. I'll have the team start digging. As the afternoon sun faded through the windows, Maya leaned back, letting herself breathe for a moment. But she knew this was far from over. She had forced Richard out of the shadows. But the closer she got to the truth, the more dangerous the silence became. Later that night, back at the hotel, she received an email. No sender listed, no subject. Just one line in the message. Reynolds died in 2012. Car accident. Want to know why? Attached was a photo. A black sedan crumpled against a median, flames still licking the edges. And below that, a scanned newspaper clipping she'd never seen. Construction executive dies in fiery crash on I-95. No foul play suspected. Maya's hands went cold. Another name. Another death. Another thread Richard thought he had buried. She stared at the screen and whispered, Not this time. Ugh. Maya sat motionless, eyes locked on the screen. The photo of Reynolds' wreck burned into her mind. The flickering orange flames, the twisted steel so much like the images she'd seen in her nightmares of her father's supposed accident. Except now, she was beginning to realize none of them were accidents. They were messages. She forwarded the email to Angela, her fingers trembling slightly. Then she picked up her phone and called. Angela answered on the first ring. I saw it. Just open the attachment. Whoever sent it, they know more, Maya said. They want me to follow the trail. Angela was quiet for a beat. Then, or they want to bait you. Push you too fast. Too far. We have to be smart about this. Maya exhaled slowly. We're past the point of safety, Angela. These men kill and cover it with concrete and headlines. But someone out there still remembers. Someone knows what Reynolds knew. And I need to find them before Whitman does. Angela's voice lowered. I've already put our team on Reynolds. Full background search. Colleagues, family, friends. If there's a link to your father, we'll find it. What if they kill again before we do? Angela's voice was steel. Then we have to move faster. That same night, in a dimly lit room in the lower level of Whitman Enterprises headquarters, Richard Whitman sat at a circular conference table with two men who did not appear on the company payroll. One was in his early 60s. Silver hair slicked back, wearing a brown leather jacket and cowboy boots. The other was clean-shaven, younger, silent, eyes scanning every corner like a hawk. They went by code names in paperwork, Redstone and Thatcher. Your maid's poking around Reynolds, Redstone said, chewing on a toothpick. I noticed, Richard replied dryly, pouring himself a drink. And now that you're here, I expect her to be redirected. Redstone smirked. She's not your average housekeeper, Dick. Girl's got teeth. You sure you want this handled the same old way? Richard's jaw clenched. I want her silenced. The younger man, Thatcher, finally spoke. Silencing her might make her louder. If she dies now, it's a martyr story. You'll never crawl out from under it. Richard shot him a look, then suggest something smarter. Thatcher leaned forward. We ruin her, discredit everything, frame her for fraud, say she faked the documents. Even better, say she doctored them and tried to sell them. And what about the journalist? Richard asked. Thatcher smiled. People trust truth-tellers until you make them look like attention addicts. We'll leak fake communications. Make Angela look like she's chasing fame, not justice. It'll smear the whole operation. Richard considered this, swirling the amber liquid in his glass. Do it, but leave Maya to me. Meanwhile, Maya and Angela had tracked down Reynolds' sister, Lucinda Reynolds, a retired school teacher now living in Delaware. She'd never spoken publicly about her brother's death, not once in the 11 years since the crash. But when Angela reached her by phone and mentioned Marcus Williams' name, there was a pause, then a whisper. I've been waiting for this call. 2 days later, they met in a quiet cafe off a county road. Lucinda was in her late 60s, her face soft but weary, with eyes that had known too much for too long. She carried a plastic grocery bag filled with old manila folders. My brother knew he was in trouble, she said, her voice trembling. Told me not to trust anyone with a Whitman badge. Said he'd seen blueprints proof the buildings weren't safe. And when he refused to sign off on falsified safety reports, he got scared. Real scared. Angela leaned forward. Did he mention Marcus Williams? Lucinda nodded. He said Marcus was the only one who told the truth. Said Marcus had filed a complaint above Richard's head. That's why they both had to go. Different ways. Same outcome. She opened one of the folders. Inside, an email, printed and yellowed with age. From Reynolds to someone named John Sutter. John Marcus is right. I've seen the documents. The Bronx site's a death trap. I won't sign this report. If something happens to me, it's Richard. You know it. Angela's eyes widened. We need this authenticated. Maya touched the paper gently. We already know it's real. Lucinda added, Reynolds told me to keep these papers in case anything ever went public. Said if the name Marcus ever made headlines, the world should know. Maya looked up, her voice fierce. Then let's tell them. Doe. The next day, Angela released a second article, this one titled, 2 Whistleblowers, 1 Fate, the deadly trail behind Whitman Enterprises. Inside, the email from Reynolds, the voice of Lucinda, the connection between 2 deaths. By nightfall, the story had gone national. Cable networks picked it up. Talk shows discussed it. Maya's image, strong, vulnerable, determined, flashed across screens from New York to Kansas. In the penthouse office, Richard hurled his phone against the wall. She was nothing, he roared. A girl in my kitchen. Owen, watching him quietly, said nothing. Richard turned, eyes wild. End her. Now. Owen made a single call. But someone was listening. Someone inside his circle who was growing nervous, and that someone made a separate call to Maya's burner. She answered on the first ring. A low voice said, They're coming for you. Tonight, you need to move. Click. The line went dead. The call ended in static. Maya stood frozen, the burner phone still pressed to her ear. Her breath caught somewhere between her lungs and her throat. Angela looked up from the couch across the room. Maya? They're coming, Maya whispered. Tonight. Angela was on her feet in an instant. Who called? I don't know. Male voice. Low. Said to move. Then he hung up. Angela grabbed her laptop, already shutting it down. We're not taking chances. Get your stuff. We're leaving. Huh. But where? Angela's eyes scanned the room. I'll call Jules from legal. She has a safe house in Yonkers. Off-grid. No digital footprint. You'll stay there until we figure out who's leaking from inside Richard's team. Maya moved quickly, stuffing her journal and files into her backpack. Her hands trembled, but her mind was sharp, focused. She had come too far. They weren't going to silence her. Outside the hotel, Angela's contact, a freelance investigator named Miles, waited in a black sedan, engine running. Drive casual, Angela said as they jumped in. No highways, no patterns. Miles nodded. I've already scrubbed the GPS, switched plates. We're ghosts. The car peeled out into the cold night, merging into the sea of city lights. Behind them, across the street, a dark SUV flicked on its headlights and began to follow. Inside the Whitman estate, Richard stood in his study, watching the news roll coverage of Maya's second press leak. A new term was trending now, the Williams-Reynolds files. His empire wasn't just cracking, it was hemorrhaging. Owen stood near the fireplace, arms crossed. It's done, Richard. We push any harder, we look guilty. The board's ready to cut you loose. Richard turned slowly. They forget who made them rich. They don't care, Owen said flatly. They want your resignation by Friday, quiet, clean, or they'll vote to remove you. Richard poured a glass of scotch, swirling it. And Maya? She's disappearing again. Our tail lost her 2 hours ago. Then find her, Richard snapped. I want her terrified. Owen hesitated. This is a line we can't uncross. Richard stepped close, his voice razor sharp. You think I built this company on clean hands and lucky breaks? You think legacy means playing nice with maids and reporters? Owen didn't flinch. I think your fear is showing. Richard stared at him, then looked away, jaw tight. I want leverage, he said finally. Find her weaknesses, friends, family, something we can use. Owen gave a reluctant nod, then left. In the Yonkers safe house, Maya sat by the fireplace, flicking through the pages of her father's journal. The safe house was old but sturdy, with worn wooden floors and thick stone walls. There was no internet, no cell towers, just silence. Angela stirred a pot of soup in the kitchen. We'll lay low here until the next wave hits. But it won't be long. Until what? Maya asked. Until someone else talks. All it takes is one. Maya nodded. Then, we need to make it easier for them. A place where whistleblowers can come forward safely. An anonymous tip line. Documents. First-hand accounts. Let them speak without fear. Angela turned, impressed. You're thinking like a movement. I'm thinking like a survivor, Maya said. They buried my dad under concrete and excuses. I won't let them do it again. Just then, Miles entered the room, face grim. We've got a breach. Angela froze. Here? No. The news office. Someone broke in, cut the server cables, stole hard drives. Angela swore under her breath. Bake up? Maya asked. Miles nodded. Off-site copies are safe. But this was a message. Angela grabbed her coat. We need to get ahead of this. Release another statement. Let them know we're not rattled. But Maya had another idea. What if we turn the press into a weapon? Angela looked at her. Maya continued. Let's give Richard a choice. Either he comes forward and tells the truth, or we hold a televised town hall, invite victims, survivors, families, let them speak, live. Unfiltered. Angela's lips parted. That would be seismic. No, it would be war, Maya said. And this time, we choose the battlefield. Meanwhile, inside a parking garage somewhere downtown, Owen sat in a black car, his laptop open. On screen, a list of names, past employees, Contractors, union reps. A few were already marked with red tags dead. Others were labeled potential risk. One name blinked in yellow. Helen Barnes. Owen clicked on it. Maya's former co-worker. The housemaid who had been watching from the stairs the night Maya screamed, "Murder." "Ma." He made a call. "I have a pressure point. A friend of Maya's. Wants to talk. Might flip." A voice answered, flat and deliberate. Then squeeze. At the safe house, as the fire crackled low, Maya felt the walls close in again, not from fear, but from the pressure of time. She knew this was the eye of the storm, and whatever came next would test every truth she held. She stood, looking out the frosted window into the trees beyond. Her father's voice echoed in her memory. "If they can erase one voice, they can erase 100. Speak, Maya, loud enough that they can't forget you ever existed." And she would, because now, they were listening. The wind scraped softly against the window panes of the safe house as Maya stirred awake in the pre-dawn light. She hadn't slept much, just enough to survive the night. Her body was still, but her mind churned with strategy. Faces, names, shadows. She reached for the notebook beside her cot and scribbled a name across the page in dark blue ink. Helen Barnes. Helen had been there that night. She had seen the look in Richard's eyes, had heard the word Maya screamed, "Murder," echo down the marble hall. Maya hadn't heard from her since, but she remembered the way Helen had watched her leave that night, her hand on the banister, face pale, eyes wet. There was something more, a knowing. Downstairs, Angela sat at the small wooden table with 2 steaming mugs of coffee and a folder in hand. Maya walked in. "I need to talk to someone." Angela glanced up. "Helen?" Maya nodded. She saw it. She's worked in that house for years. If anyone knows the secrets in those walls, it's her. Angela hesitated. "She's still employed by Whitman. Reaching out to her could expose us. Or she could help us finish this," Maya said, "and I think she wants to." "No," Angela sighed, pushing the second mug toward her. "All right, we'll do it carefully." That afternoon, Angela's team sent a courier envelope, no name, no return address, to Helen Barnes's home in Queens. Inside, a note in Maya's handwriting. "Helen, you were there that night. I saw it in your eyes. I know there's more you want to say. If you're ready to talk, I'll be in the garden behind Street Mark's church. Tomorrow, noon. No one else. Just truth." Maya. The next day, Maya sat on a cold metal bench beneath a crumbling oak tree, her father's journal on her lap, her breath fogging in the autumn air. The garden was empty. She checked the time. 12:08. Maybe she wasn't coming. But then footsteps. She turned. Helen, bundled in a dark coat, sunglasses low on her nose, gloves on. She looked thinner, older, but her eyes still held that same quiet intensity. She sat beside Maya, saying nothing at first. Then, softly, "You shouldn't have come back." "I didn't come to fight," Maya said. "I came to ask for your help." Helen let out a long breath. "That man destroyed your family. He's been destroying others for years. You're not the first girl I've seen leave that house in tears. Just the first to come back swinging." Maya's voice cracked. "You knew about my father, didn't you?" Helen looked down at her gloved hands. "I remember Marcus. I remember how kind he was. Always smiling, always helping. He brought donuts for the kitchen staff on Fridays. Then one day, he was gone." "They said it was an accident," Maya whispered. Helen nodded slowly. "But Richard started acting strange. Panicked. Paranoid. That same week, he fired 2 site managers and installed a private security team on the Bronx build. Then he burned a box of papers in the backyard fire pit. I saw him, at midnight, standing there, drinking, watching it burn." Maya's pulse quickened. "You saw the files?" "No. But I knew they weren't trash. Richard doesn't touch garbage. Whatever was in that box, it scared him." "Would you testify?" Maya asked. "Would you say this publicly?" Helen's lips pressed tight. "I'm a housemaid, Maya. A 5-6-year-old black woman with no pension and no savings. If I speak, I lose everything. You wouldn't be alone." Helen looked at her, eyes soft. Neither would you. Silence settled between them. Birds chirped somewhere beyond the church walls. Then Helen said, "There's something else. Something you don't know." Maya leaned forward. "The night before your father died, he came to the house. Late. I let him in. He was sweating, pacing. He said he needed to speak to Richard. Urgently. I told him it wasn't safe. But he said he had evidence. Real evidence. Not just words. Something that could destroy everything. What was it? I don't know. He had it in a brown folder. Thick. Sealed. He asked me to hold it if anything happened to him." Maya's breath hitched. "You have it?" Helen shook her head. "I never got the chance. Richard walked in, saw the folder, and I never saw Marcus again. I never saw Marcus again." Maya's chest tightened. "You think that's why he—" "I don't think. I know." Maya swallowed hard. "So where's the folder now?" Helen hesitated. "I don't know. But I think Richard still has it. Hidden. He's arrogant. But he's also scared. He wouldn't destroy it. Not if he thought he might need it someday." Maya stood up, the journal pressed to her chest. "Then I'll find it." Helen stood too, brushing her hands on her coat. "You're brave. Just like your father." Maya gave a sad smile. "He taught me that justice doesn't whisper. It roars." Helen nodded, eyes glistening. "Then roar, baby. Loud enough for the dead to rest." They embraced quickly, briefly. Then Helen turned and walked away, back into the city that never stopped moving. Maya stood in the quiet. The wind picked up, and she knew what came next. She had to go back. Back into the house where it began. Back into the lion's den. The plan wasn't just dangerous, it was insane. Angela stood in the middle of the safe house's kitchen, arms crossed, her brow deeply furrowed. "You want to break into Richard Whitman's estate, after everything, after he's threatened your life, after he's had people following you." Maya stood across from her, calm but unwavering. "I don't want to. I have to." Angela slammed her hand on the counter. "Why? Why now?" "Because there's a folder," Maya said. Helen saw it. "My father handed it to her the night before he died. Richard intercepted it. That folder has everything, his real notes, safety reports, the names of other victims. If we find it, we end this, for good." Angela stared at her for a long beat, then exhaled. "Then we need a plan." 2 nights later, the Whitman estate loomed ahead of them like a fortress. Angela waited with Miles a block away, parked under an oak tree with the engine off and binoculars aimed at the front gate. The security system had changed: more guards, new cameras, a tighter perimeter, but Maya knew the estate's rhythm like muscle memory. She wore dark jeans, a black windbreaker, her hair tied back under a cap. Her father's journal was tucked in her bag along with a miniature camera, a flashlight, and a flash drive for evidence. The servant's entrance around the back, her old route, was still covered by hedges, but a new padlock had been installed. Maya reached into her pocket, pulled out the small toolkit Miles had trained her on. She was no criminal, but grief had taught her new skills. The lock clicked. She slipped inside the kitchen like a whisper. The familiar scent of lemon polish and marble floors hit her. Everything was the same. Cold, immaculate, lifeless. She moved quickly, avoiding the main hallway, sticking to the servant corridors she'd memorized years ago. The office was upstairs, but she didn't need the main one, the one with polished awards and decoy files. She needed Richard's real office, the one behind the library. She slipped through the heavy double doors of the main library. Floor-to-ceiling shelves, leather-bound books, a fireplace that hadn't been used in years. She remembered Helen whispering once, "The walls listen in here." Lock. Maya moved to the back wall. There, near the biography section, was a slim wooden panel. She pressed it gently. Click. A hidden latch opened, revealing a narrow staircase down. She descended into darkness, flashlight in hand. At the bottom, a small door. Behind it, Richard's private archive. She turned the knob, unlocked. Inside, file cabinets, a desk, a safe, and on the wall a photo of Richard shaking hands with a Senator Maya, now recognized from the headlines. She went to the desk first. The drawers were locked, but one hung slightly open. Inside, folders, dozens, and in the back a brown one, worn, thick. She pulled it out and opened it. Her father's handwriting stared back at her. Whitman's site report unfiled. Date, the 8th of March 2007. Submitted by Marcus Williams. The pages were devastating. Detailed notes on faulty foundations. Altered safety inspections. Warnings about poor welding practices. And overworked crews. At the bottom of the last page, her father had written, "If this report is ignored, it will cost lives, including mine." Maya's hands shook. She took photos of every page with the miniature camera. Then, as she reached the last one, she noticed something else taped to the back cover. A flash drive, labeled, "Confidential Eyes Only." She didn't hesitate, slipped it into her bag, and that's when she heard it. Footsteps. Above her, her breath caught. She turned off the flashlight, crouched behind the filing cabinet. The office door creaked. Light poured in. A shadow moved across the floor. Maya held her breath, heart hammering against her ribs. She saw a silhouette, broad shoulders, a heavy gait. Owen. He stepped inside slowly, scanning the room. Maya reached into her bag. If he turned, if he found her, then suddenly, his phone buzzed. He answered it quickly. "She's not here," he said. "I just checked the back office. Must be old intel. I'll try the East Wing next." He left. Maya exhaled, counted to 10, then crept out of the room and back up the stairs. She moved faster now. Every step a prayer, every breath a countdown. Through the kitchen, out the servant's door, back into the hedges. She ran down the street until she saw Angela's car. She jumped in. Angela didn't speak, just drove. When they were 10 blocks away, she looked at Maya. "Well?" Maya reached into her bag, pulled out the folder and the flash drive. Angela's eyes widened. "Is that?" Maya nodded. "Everything." Angela stared at her like she was seeing her for the first time. Maya turned to the window. The city lights flickered like stars through a fog of fear. But for the first time, they didn't scare her. This wasn't just revenge. This was justice wrapped in paper, sealed in silence, finally set free. The morning sun cast a dull amber glow over the city. But for Maya, it felt like a floodlight. After years of whispering in the shadows, hiding behind doors, and biting down truth with her teeth, she was done. The documents were real. The flash drive even more damning. Angela sat beside her in the small newsroom conference room, her fingers flying over the keyboard, uploading copies to encrypted servers, while Maya leafed through the physical pages of her father's final report. The silence between them was heavy, charged with momentum. "You know what happens once we release this," Angela said, not looking up. Maya met her eyes. "They'll try to kill it, spin it, bury it under noise." Angela leaned back in her chair. "Exactly. Which is why we're not going through the usual channels." "What do you mean?" Angela smiled faintly. "I booked you a live interview. Tonight, national TV, primetime slot. You'll sit down with Gloria Nevers, old-school journalist, 40 years in the game, respected across the board. They trust her." Maya's throat tightened. "Tonight?" Angela nodded. "It's time, Maya. You're not just a witness anymore. You're the lead voice in this storm." Across the city, Richard Whitman's penthouse office had become a war bunker. He stared at the security camera feed, replaying footage of Maya slipping through the side gate, vanishing into the estate. "She was inside my home," he growled. Owen stood beside him, face pale, shoulders rigid. "You should have increased the lockdown after her first press appearance." "I did, but someone's leaking. Someone inside." Richard turned, eyes gleaming with fury. "Find them. I don't care who. I want names. I want them blacklisted. Destroyed." Owen cleared his throat. "There's more. She's booked for a live interview tonight. They're calling it a reckoning." Richard's fist crashed onto the glass desk. "Then we stop it." Owen hesitated. "We can't. It's already trending. Thousands of people have RSVP'd to watch the live stream. If we interfere, it'll spark outrage." Richard's nostrils flared. "Then we change the narrative. Leak something. Anything." Owen didn't move. "Now!" Richard barked. But deep inside, Owen was no longer convinced. The longer this dragged on, the more Richard's mask slipped. This wasn't about protecting a legacy. It was about surviving exposure. Owen wasn't sure he was willing to go down with him. Maya sat in the makeup chair backstage at the network studio. Her palms were sweating, and her pulse thudded just under her skin. But her voice? It was steady. A production assistant touched her shoulder gently. 3 minutes, Miss Williams. Angela leaned in from the corner. You know what to say. Stick to your truth. Don't let them redirect you. And remember, don't be afraid to pause. Silence is power. Maya gave a small nod. Thank you. As she stepped out into the bright, sterile lights of the set, the applause from the small live audience surprised her. Not thunderous, but real. Sincere. Gloria Nevers, poised and dignified in her dark gray suit, extended a hand. Welcome, Maya. They sat across from one another, a thin table between them, and the red light on the camera blinked on. We are live in 3, 2, 1. Gloria began. Good evening, America. Tonight, we are joined by Maya Williams, former employee of Whitman Enterprises, and the daughter of the late Marcus Williams, a construction supervisor whose sudden death was ruled accidental until now. Maya inhaled once and met Gloria's gaze, then turned to the camera. My name is Maya Williams, and my father did not die in an accident. He was silenced because he told the truth. She reached into her bag, pulled out the journal. This book was the last thing my father left me. Inside are his notes, his fears, and his warnings. Warnings about unsafe construction practices, falsified safety records, and pressure from executives to cover it all up. Gloria leaned in. You've also obtained internal files? Maya nodded. I recovered a folder from Richard Whitman's private archive. It contains reports written by my father, emails from a second whistleblower, Reynolds, who also died under suspicious circumstances. There's even a flash drive holding digital files that prove Richard Whitman knowingly cut corners, resulting in the deaths of workers. The camera cut to the audience silent, riveted. Gloria continued, Why now, Maya? Why come forward? Maya looked straight into the lens. Because justice delayed is still justice. And because men like Richard Whitman count on fear, on silence. But I've learned something: when you lose everything, there's nothing left to be afraid of. The crowd stirred. Gloria paused. You're risking your life doing this. I know, Maya said softly. But I'm not alone. There are others out there. People who've been hurt, silenced, buried under corporate spin. I'm speaking for them too. Gloria looked toward the camera. Maya Williams, thank you. We admire your courage. The light on the camera faded to black, but the effect was immediate. Number Justice for Marcus trended within 5 minutes. News outlets across the country replayed clips of the interview. Donations poured into a new whistleblower protection fund Maya and Angela had launched quietly just hours before. And most importantly, victims began reaching out. Anonymous tips, names, emails, evidence. It wasn't just about Marcus anymore. It was a movement. That night, in the quiet of the safe house, Maya stood in front of the window again, watching the city lights flicker like signals across the sky. Angela walked up behind her, holding a glass of water. You did it. Oh, Maya shook her head. We did it. But it's not over yet. Angela nodded. Tomorrow, we go to the DA. Maya looked down at the flash drive still in her palm. No more secrets. She turned to Angela. Let's finish this. By 8 a.m., the next morning, the district attorney's office in downtown Manhattan was a beehive of silent urgency. Maya, dressed in a simple navy suit that once belonged to Angela's sister, sat in a glass-walled interview room with a cardboard box beside her. Inside, her father's journal, the confidential folder retrieved from Richard's archive, and the flash drive labeled Eyes Only. Across from her sat Assistant District Attorney Samuel Cruz, a man with tired eyes, a sharp jawline, and the kind of quiet resolve Maya had come to trust more than loud promises. He hadn't said much yet, just reviewed the documents, one by one, in silence. The kind of silence that says, We've been waiting for this. Angela sat beside Maya, watching him carefully. Finally, Cruz exhaled. This is enough for a grand jury indictment. More than enough. Maya's fingers curled tightly around the rim of her chair. So what happens now? We verify the documents for chain of custody. Then proceed to issue a sealed subpoena for Whitman's financials, project logs, and internal communications. Once that's done, we'll coordinate with the Attorney General's office for a statewide probe. You'll be subpoenaed to testify, but we can file for protective custody. Angela interjected. We want this public. No deals behind closed doors. The people deserve to see this unfold. Cruz gave a measured nod. You'll get your day in court, but I'll be honest with you. Both Whitman's attorneys are the best in the country. They'll throw everything they have to discredit this. Maya straightened. They can try. That afternoon, Richard Whitman stepped out of his Blacktown car and into the stone lobby of Whitman Enterprises. A sea of reporters swarmed behind barricades, microphones outstretched, cameras flashing. Mr. Whitman, do you have a comment on the Williams-Reynolds investigation? Is it true you're facing criminal charges? Do you deny knowledge of the whistleblower deaths? Richard ignored them all, striding past security like a general into battle. Upstairs, the boardroom was already assembled. 12 men and women who once looked at him with admiration now eyed him like a liability. The chairman stood. Richard, as of this morning, the board has voted unanimously to suspend you as CEO of Whitman Enterprises, pending investigation. Effective immediately. Richard's smile didn't reach his eyes. You'll regret this. The chairman nodded once. Perhaps, but we'll do it legally. Richard turned to Owen, who had watched it all in silence. You're still with me, right? Owen didn't respond, just looked away. Later that night, Maya sat in the newsroom watching the news ticker scroll across the bottom of the screen. Breaking. District Attorney confirms criminal investigation into Richard Whitman. Insiders suggest more indictments may follow. Maya Williams speaks again. This is only the beginning. Angela handed her a cup of coffee. You're about to become the most powerful voice in the country. Maya didn't smile. Power isn't what I want. I want truth. And for the families who buried their loved ones without answers, I want peace. Angela leaned against the desk. I got another message. A former accountant from Whitman's Phoenix office. Says he has payroll discrepancies going back 10 years. He's ready to talk. Maya raised her eyebrows. This thing really is bigger than we thought. Angela nodded. Your father pulled on a thread. You've unraveled a system. Just then, Maya's burner phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. They won't let you testify. Be ready. Maya stared at it, her pulse rising. Angela read over her shoulder. Is it a threat? Maya shook her head slowly. It's a warning. At 3:47 a.m., a white van without plates pulled into the alley behind Maya's safe house. 2 men stepped out dressed in all black. Earpieces. Gloves. Precision. They moved toward the side entrance with practiced efficiency. One carried a lock bypassing tool, the other carried a silencer. But when they reached the door, it opened, and Angela was waiting. Behind her, Miles held a shotgun. Try me, he said, voice calm as thunder. The men froze. A flash of red and blue lit up the alley. NYPD cruisers roared in from both ends. Within seconds, the men were cuffed and in the back of squad cars. Angela turned to Maya, who stood behind her in a long coat, arms crossed. They're not even hiding it anymore, Angela muttered. Maya looked toward the flashing lights. Good. Neither are we. By morning, headlines flooded the nation. Attempted attack on whistleblower thwarted by police tip. Maya Williams. Courage under fire. Richard Whitman's empire crumbles hour by hour. Talk show hosts debated it. Ministers preached about it. Union leaders rallied around it. Maya had become more than a voice. She was a symbol. But she knew it wasn't over. Not until Richard stood in court. Not until every family who'd lost someone got the closure they deserved. She opened her notebook and began writing her opening testimony. Not for the cameras. For her father. The courtroom was packed. Journalists filled every row behind the bar. Their pens and eyes trained forward. Behind them sat families, some angry, others hollow-eyed, clutching folded photos or yellowing construction ID badges. They had come from across the state, widows, daughters, brothers of the men who had once worked on Whitman projects, some never returning home. At the front of the room stood the man whose name had once meant power, Richard Whitman. But now, in a charcoal suit without his usual tie pin, He looked smaller, still composed, but thinner, wearier. His once impenetrable armor had cracked, and though he stood straight, the mask he wore for decades was gone. Maya sat just yards away, behind the prosecutor's table, beside Angela and ADA Cruz. Her hands were folded on her lap, her breathing slow but deep. This was it, the beginning of the end. The judge entered, an older black woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and a reputation for refusing to be bullied by money or reputation. "All rise," the bailiff called. The trial of the state versus Richard Whitman had begun. Cruz's opening statement was quiet but pointed. No theatrics, just facts. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we are here today not because of ambition, nor vendetta, but because of the truth. Truth buried under concrete. Truth burned in backyards. Truth that cost lives. Today, we'll show you how Richard Whitman prioritized profits over safety. How he silenced the voices who tried to protect workers. And how one of those voices, Marcus Williams, paid with his life. And you'll hear from the person who refused to let his story die." Cruz nodded toward Maya. The jurors glanced at her, some with curiosity, others with sympathy. Maya met their eyes without flinching. She wasn't there to perform. She was there to finish what her father started. When her name was called to testify, the room stilled. She walked slowly to the stand, every step echoing in the chamber. Angela squeezed her hand once as she passed. "He can't touch you now." Maya raised her right hand and took the oath. Her voice didn't tremble. She sat, adjusted the mic, and took a breath. "My name is Maya Williams. I am the daughter of Marcus Williams, and I'm here to tell you what happened to him." She recounted the early days, how her father loved his work, how he brought blueprints to the dinner table, how he fought to improve safety measures on every site he managed. Then, how things changed. He came home one night and told me he'd submitted a report. One that exposed severe violations at the Bronx build site. He said if he stayed quiet, people would die. But if he spoke up, he might not come home. She paused. Let that sink in. And then 1 week later, he was gone. No. She described the funeral. The silence. The guilt. The years she spent trying to forget. Until she found his journal. The jury listened with a kind of reverence rarely found in courtrooms. Then Cruz handed her a folder. "Do you recognize this, Miss Williams?" She opened it slowly. "Yes, this is the folder I recovered from Richard Whitman's private archive. These are my father's words." Cruz gestured. "Please read the highlighted passage." "Mel." Maya's voice rang clear. "If this report is ignored, it will cost lives, including mine. Marcus Williams, the 8th of March 2007. The room was silent. Even Richard shifted in his chair. Cruz let the words breathe before continuing. "Thank you, Maya. No further questions." Richard's defense attorney stood, a man named Carlyle, known for turning witnesses inside out. He approached the stand slowly. "Miss Williams, do you have any background in construction engineering? Safety compliance?" "No," Maya said. "But my father did. Do you have any direct evidence that Richard Whitman ordered your father's death?" "I have a trail of cover-ups, lies, and missing documents. If you're asking if he pulled the trigger himself, I don't know. But I know he created the conditions that made my father's death not only possible but inevitable." Carlyle smirked. "Emotionalism shown don't equal fact." "Oh," Maya leaned forward slightly. "Neither does pretending this was ever just business. My father was a man, not a margin." There was a small stir in the courtroom. Carlyle narrowed his eyes, then retreated. No further questions. Maya stepped down. As she returned to her seat, she glanced once at Richard. He didn't meet her gaze. Over the next 2 days, more witnesses took the stand. Construction foreman, a former intern who had been paid to destroy digital records, and finally, Helen Barnes. When she entered the courtroom, Maya stood. The room watched as the longtime housemaid walked with dignity to the witness stand and swore her oath. "I was there the night Marcus Williams came to the estate," she began. "I let him in. He was scared. He had a folder. He said it could bring everything down." Her voice broke. "He never left that house again." The courtroom held its breath. "I can't say what happened behind closed doors, but I can say this. Richard Whitman never asked where Marcus went. He didn't call his family. He just poured himself a drink and burned papers in the backyard at midnight. A juror wiped her eyes. Another stared at Richard with a clenched jaw. By the end of the week, the case had become national news. Memes of Maya testifying went viral, her face steady, her voice a symbol of defiance. Whistleblowers from 3 other states had come forward, and the prosecution had rested. Now, all that remained was the defense and the final verdict. Maya stood on the courthouse steps with Angela and Helen beside her. Cameras clicked. A reporter shouted, "Do you believe justice will be served?" Maya didn't hesitate. "I believe justice is already happening. And this trial? It's just the beginning." "Mayor." The crowd applauded. Somewhere inside, Richard watched from a small holding room, awaiting his turn on the stand. For the first time in decades, he was the one under judgment. And justice was knocking. The courtroom was still as stone. Outside, New York roared with its usual chaos. But within these 4 walls, the world had narrowed to a single breath. One question, 12 people, one decision. Maya sat beside Angela in the front row, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Every muscle in her body was taut, yet her eyes were calm, steady, focused on the man who had once dragged her by the hair across a ballroom floor and called her nothing. Richard Whitman sat at the defense table. Taller now. Thinner. His shoulders slumped ever so slightly. His jawline no longer sharp but clenched in a constant fight with gravity. His power had bled out in inches over the weeks. This man, once untouchable, now waited like every other man whose lies had been brought to light. The jury filed in, somber, deliberate. The judge looked at them. Has the jury reached a verdict? The foreman, a middle-aged man with silver-rimmed glasses and a blue-collar posture, stood, holding a single sheet of paper. "We have, Your Honor." Maya's breath caught in her chest. Angela reached under the table, squeezing her hand once, grounding her. The judge nodded. "Please read the verdict." The foreman's voice was clear, each word a nail in the coffin of silence. "On the charge of conspiracy to commit corporate fraud, guilty. On the charge of obstruction of justice, guilty. On the charge of negligent homicide in the deaths of Marcus Williams and Henry Reynolds, guilty. On the charge of tampering with evidence, guilty. On the charge of abuse of power and witness, intimidation, guilty." The courtroom erupted not in chaos, but in tears. A low, rumbling wave of emotion rolled across the benches. Hands clutched mouths. People sobbed openly. For some, this wasn't about Richard Whitman. It was about the first time someone like him wasn't allowed to buy his way out. Maya didn't cry. She sat still, silent, letting the weight of every verdict fall across her chest like a warm blanket. It wasn't joy she felt. It was release. A quiet kind of peace. Richard didn't speak, didn't argue. He just stared ahead, his empire gone, his legend rewritten. The judge's gavel fell. Sentencing will be held in 30 days. Court is adjourned. As Maya stood, cameras already waiting outside, Angela leaned close. "You did it." Maya shook her head. "We did it, and so did my dad." That evening, Maya visited the cemetery alone. The city behind her buzzed with headlines, interviews, new podcasts analyzing the trial from every angle. Her phone had over 600 unread messages. Documentarians, publishers, TV producers. Everyone wanted her story, but she came here for silence. The sun dipped low behind the trees as she knelt at the grave of Marcus Williams. She reached into her bag and pulled out the old leather journal. Gently, she laid it down against the headstone. "They heard you, Dad," she whispered. "The world finally heard you." Wind rustled the autumn leaves around her. She smiled faintly. "And I kept my promise." She stood, brushing her coat closed against the chill, and turned to leave. Just as she reached the path, a young girl approached, no older than 12. Brown skin, big eyes, nervous. "Miss Maya?" she asked, clutching a worn notebook. Maya paused. "Yes?" The girl's voice trembled. "My brother. He works construction. He says safety's worse now than ever in some places. He told me to tell you. Don't stop. Please." Maya knelt down. "What's your name?" "Imani." Maya smiled. "Imani, tell your brother this. We're just getting started." She gently took the girl's notebook and signed it, adding one line below her name. Justice doesn't whisper, it roars. 1 year later, the Whitman Foundation had been dissolved. His real estate empire dismantled. Millions were reallocated to victims' families and rebuilding safe worker initiatives across the country. Maya had started her own nonprofit, the Williams Foundation for Worker Justice. And tonight, she stood behind a podium at a gala filled with union leaders, lawmakers, mothers who had buried their sons. The crowd rose to their feet as she approached, and when she spoke, her voice echoed with purpose. We are not weak when we demand dignity. We are not ungrateful when we demand safety. We are not voiceless. We are not disposable. We build this country. And now, we build the future. Thunderous applause filled the room. She stepped back into the spotlight, not to be seen, but to shine it. And behind her, in every face, in every raised hand, her father lived on, not in silence, but in the roar. This story is a powerful reminder that truth cannot be buried forever. No matter how strong, wealthy, or untouchable someone appears, justice has a way of rising, especially when fueled by courage and love. Maya's journey teaches us that standing up for what's right may come with great personal cost, but silence often costs more. In a world that too often favors the powerful, the brave voices of the unheard can still shake empires.